Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our faculty roundtable for March of 2021. I am so excited to have a special group of speakers with us today. I'm going to take a few minutes to welcome everybody, to introduce all of our speakers and let everybody know what a wonderful group we've got. We've got some wonderful information to share with you about all of the faculty's hard work that they've been doing, not only over the COVID time, but for quite a few years, but especially over all of our COVID work. So I do want to take an opportunity to both introduce myself, if I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, and then also to introduce each of our speakers who are either with us currently or who will be with us in just a little while. I'll go ahead and go through the list. First of all, my name is Sherry Restora. I am currently serving as the Senior Executive Director for the Coastal Office of Online Learning. I'm just your facilitator today, so I'm not actually going to be one of the speakers, but I will be having the pleasure of introducing everybody and also being able to answer and ask a little bit of the questions throughout today. Today's session is specifically titled How to Facilitate Interaction in a Digital Learning Environment. This is a special invited speaker session for some of our rockstar faculty here at Coastal Carolina University. I am so excited to have everybody join us, and if you're listening live, we are monitoring all of the chat on YouTube, and so you're welcome to type in any questions. We'll be pausing periodically to address those questions, and we'll let the speakers both answer you verbally. They're also monitoring YouTube themselves, and so they may answer you through chat. And then I'll also be sharing on the next slide with you a QR code that you can use to share, to scan and share some resources and read some of the items we've collected for you. So let me go ahead and introduce you to some of our faculty that are here and able to share information with you about all of their hard work in their courses. First is Jen Boyle. Jen is serving as an assistant dean and also a professor in English. And she has also had the great pleasure of serving as distance learning chair for us on our distance learning committee. She has been a Cool Grant awardee. We have worked with Jen for a very long time, so we are super excited to have her here with us today. Lindsay Kramer, also Lindsay comes to us specifically from Communications, Media, and Culture. And Lindsay, we are so excited to have you, also who has participated in many of the different types of professional development programs and has been a superstar for quite some time in our area, and I know has many items to share with you today about facilitating interaction. Next on our list, Zinyi Tan, who comes to us also, interestingly enough, in case you guys are detecting a pattern, from the College of Humanities and Fine Arts. Zinyi specifically is a professor in languages and intercultural studies. She is also, interestingly enough, one of our faculty course mentors. She also has been a recipient of Cool Grants and even a recent grant from one of our favorite vendors, Echo 360. So Zinyi is bringing lots of interesting information about how to interact with her students, and she'll be sharing that with you today. And Sarah, I think I skipped her name, and I apologize for that. I think I went straight past it. So Sarah Loger-Leola also comes to us today from COFA, College of Humanities and Fine Arts. She's an assistant professor in English. She is currently our chair of the Distance Learning Committee. Also, like Zinyi, is a faculty course mentor and has been involved heavily throughout the time in a lot of our digital learning work. Not with us yet, but who will be joining us as soon as she rushes in from teaching her class is Holly Tankersley. Holly is currently my boss. She serves as the associate provost over initiatives, and also she's a professor in political science. So she'll be joining us in just a little while once she is done with teaching her class. I am Sherry Restora, like I said, so you're welcome to type any messages if you like as we go forward. Now that you know the names of our speakers, you're welcome if you have any specific questions for Jen, for Zinyi, for Sarah, for Holly, for Lindsay, or for myself, or our team, you're welcome to just type it directly into YouTube. Just put @Jen or @Sarah, and we'll make sure that we ask the specific speaker any of your questions, okay? All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with some of the questions that we've prepared for our speakers. Do you know that we only have 5 questions? We did that on purpose because this is an hour and a half long roundtable, and we wanted to have enough time to answer any questions that you might ask for our speakers as well, because digital learning has been a challenge for many of us for quite some time, and we want to make sure that we share with you not only some of the wonderful techniques and pedagogy and ideas and experiences, but we also hear any questions and ideas that you may have to share as well. So as we go forward through the rest of today's roundtable, what you'll see is each of the 5 questions that we've prepared is going to be presented to you on the screen. And also on the screen is a QR code. So I don't want to give you too much technical detail, but if you have a QR reader on your cell phone, or if you happen to have an iPhone like mine, then you can just simply open the photo app and you can scan it. And what this will actually do is it will actually go directly to a web page that will allow you to open up and see all of the resources that we've pulled together, a collection of articles, readings, blogs, and other websites that our speakers and Cool believe may be helpful to you going forward. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and start with our first question for today. Keeping in mind so many different things have changed, speakers, over the last year, now about 54 weeks, if you're counting back from when Cool started doing all of our prep work due with COVID. Our first question to kind of think about as we get started is, in a traditional face-to-face class, what types of student to faculty and student to student activities and interactions do you have? So I want to give some context to those of us listening, either right now or later. We're asking this because we're going to do a compare and contrast. What do you normally do in a face-to-face environment? And then our next step is going to be to kind of draw some similarities and talk about what that looks like in a digital learning space. I'm going to go around by the order of people that are on my screen. So Zini, if you don't mind, I would love to have you take the mic and answer this question for us. Thank you.
Sure. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Yes. So I'm a language instructor. So communication is both the means and the ultimate goal in my class in the target language, whether it's Chinese or French. So I would say the biggest difference, between face-to-face and digital learning is that, face-to-face setting, students are able to be really close to one another, right? Physically, and the interaction is more efficient for sure, because they can share the same material, and also there are more interactive activities we can do in the target language. So usually I would say the sequencing of the activities is the same, whether it's face-to-face or online, because we usually start with a quick review on the vocab and grammar, and then they will be engaged in a series of interactive activities to practice the language. And so normally they would, I would proceed from structured input activities, which help them process the key expressions, right, for each lesson. And then we will do some, output activities where they would produce information in the target language. And usually they are put in, several pairs or even a group of 3 or 4. And, with the physical space, they're able to move around as well to exchange information. And one particular activity that I do miss doing is a questionnaire. So students, they can interview a few other students to, get information about a certain topic, which is not, the same in the online space.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think, I was having this conversation, Zinyi, very recently. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, with another language instructor. And we were discussing this because back in the late 90s, when I was in college and I was taking a language, we had to check out VHS tapes, and we had to put them in little study corrals, and we had to listen to them with headsets like I'm wearing today. And I remember thinking, this would be easier to learn if I was doing this around other people. Why am I learning this language all by myself? And it amazes me, the importance of the pedagogy, regardless of whether we're face to face or whether we're online. You really need to be in person and interacting in some capacity in order to really truly learn a language. I was learning American Sign Language, and so it was especially interesting to kind of do that point of comparison. Of I remember signing all by myself and thinking it would make more sense if I was signing at other people.
Well, thank you, Sherry, for sharing your personal experience as a language learner. Do you mean that it happened during your class time? It wasn't like you had to preview for the lesson. It was just in the middle of a class, and there was no interaction between students and the instructor. You would talk to a tape.
That's correct.
Oh, that just sounds horrible. Like, yeah. So, well, language instruction has evolved rapidly, and nowadays, I hope no one does that anymore. Certainly not at Coastal. In our department, I don't think anyone, does that. But like you said, it's thanks to our training and also these amazing technologies, there's so much we can do despite the environment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, perfect. Sarah, you are next on my screen. If you could take the mic, and we're talking about what kinds of things in your amazing classes that I love to see screenshots and examples of. What kinds of things do you do when you're in a face-to-face environment traditionally that are student to student or that are instructor to student? What does that normally look like for you?
Yeah, so and my departmental home is English, but I actually primarily teach in the digital culture and design program. And those are the classes that I teach. So it's not, although you might hear a professor of English and imagine like writing and reading, there is that, but not as much. So my classes in a traditional face-to-face environment tend to happen in a computer lab. And we do a lot of, shared group discussion where I tend to not lecture so much as, ask questions and let them respond and try to host a discussion, right? Which is more challenging on Zoom, and not to get ahead of the game, but you all, I think, probably know that. I tend to do a lot of group and partner work, both within the class itself of like maybe handing students a particular coding challenge or conceptual challenge to work on together, and then kind of return back to the whole group and we'll share what we've come up with. And that can be in small groups of like 2 or 3, or that can be on a full assignment where I'll actually give them collaborative assignments, like collaborative interactive essays, where they will work together both to conceptualize the essay and then also to design it in a digital space and build in the interactions and handle the multimedia and any kinds of additional coding that goes with it. So I do a lot of student collaborative work. And I include a fair amount of peer review in my classes as well, often in the form of user testing or play testing, where when they're building some kind of interactive project, there will often be a day in class where they pair off or go into small groups of 2 or 3 and work on a prototype that they've been building, and then actually run through a user test or a play test to make sure everything's communicating effectively and that their plan for the design actually works. And then finally, a couple of the tools that I often use in a face-to-face class for some of this work are, for the interactive essay, I often use Twine, which is actually a text game engine where it's kind of for building hypertext and supports online multimedia and like linked passages. So you could build out like a single page that links out to say 5 more pages, and students can get a practice of, I often have them write like a choose your own adventure style essay. And then we build Twitter bots using Tracery, and we do interactive poetry using Stepworks. And so often in the classroom, because I'm in a computer lab, they'll collaborate in real time on the same machine, which actually figuring out how to adjust for that now has been another challenge that I wasn't necessarily anticipating, though perhaps I should have been. And then also they'll collaborate at a distance, even in a regular classroom.
Sarah, you talked a little bit about some of the new technologies, and I'm gonna come back to you with the next question in just a second. But before I forgot, put a pin in the new technology that you were just talking about, because that's one that I definitely want to bring out in the next question. Because sometimes it's important to help people understand, oh, this is something I've not heard, or this is a new toy, or a new product to share. So we want to make sure that we put that into the links that we're going to share with everybody. But then also help me remember to pinpoint that when we get to question number 2. Okay.
Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Jen, you are next.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for inviting us all. So I, like Sarah, I teach across my work, actually crosses both digital culture, digital humanities, and not so much traditional English studies, but things that come out of English studies. So in the traditional classroom, those two things are sort of already active and engaged with one another, as I'll explain here in a minute. So there's digital content, there's digital tools and experiences, and then there's content that you would normally, and practices that would normally come out of kind of a more traditional environment. In terms of practices for interaction and interactivity in the traditional classroom, I have this idea of the minute module idea, where nobody talks for too long, and that includes me. So rather than going in sort of to the old framework where we get into this kind of lecture, moving through, I come in with some very sort of focused comments. The idea is to move to discussion. The discussion is structured in such a way where people get to move around as they're working on that. So it's a very sort of horizontal, I would say, sort of. So that really is something that's always been present in a traditional classroom. And I think, as the last two participants have already said, that there are some challenges posed in the digital environment that are not there sometimes in the traditional classroom. The other thing that I will mention is that in terms of experiential, hands-on interaction and conceptual interaction, the students work together on a digital book. And they do this in different forms in advanced and lower division classes. In my upper division class, students actually create a book together in an environment called Scalar. And they write chapters which are hypertext chapters that allow you to integrate media of all sorts. And in doing that, they work with each other. So as Sarah was just discussing, they map out conceptually what a chapter would look like in this. We have discussions about that, and then they work on it together. And one thing I'll just point to is like kind of a teaser. You think in terms of the writing aspect of that, both envisioning the construction of writing and the conceptualizing of writing, you think, oh, wow, this is something that really thrives in the traditional environment. And I learned something different when we had to go redirect to COVID around that. So that's one thing that was a surprise to me in terms of the adaptive movement. But working in that environment, planning and then actually constructing the book is highly interactive. I did also have to move from Scalar to a different platform for the book, because Scalar, even though it's a digital environment and students can watch, tutorials, I was always in that room with them, and when we'd have discussion leaders that would help them learn it, because there's a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning. And I just didn't want to put that on students in the Zoom environment or even in the Moodle environment during the COVID redirect. So that was learning which digital tools. We think all digital tools work great in digital environments. Some digital tools work better in the traditional environment, which seems like an oxymoron, than they do in the traditional environment actually works better for some of them.
I have actually found that to be the case as well. And it's interesting for me because with only one exception, Jen, I have taught all of my classes asynchronously DL the whole time I've been here. But something that I remember sharing with several people in administration and with several colleagues was it's different, because it doesn't matter whether you intended to teach DL, intended to teach hybrid, intended to teach face-to-face. COVID did something to everybody in such a way that it just changed every platform. And I remember actually saying, I meant to teach DL asynchronous, but I didn't mean to teach it like this. This was never in my plan. And so I also, like you, when I had the chance, I changed books and I changed platforms because my students were no longer coming on campus. They were all remote and they needed something different from me. So I went through the exact same experience with my psych classes of having to do a little bit of change around, even though it was meant to be an asynchronous class. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm excited to hear more about the book building and all of that collaborative work from your students too. All right, Lindsay, your turn.
Thank you. And thank you for having me today. For those of you who don't know me, I teach in the Department of Communication, Media, and Culture, and I teach classes related to communication research methods, sports media, sports communication, media self in the world, and things like this. And so in the classes that I teach, we focus a lot on theory, as I think many of the classes you all teach probably do as well. And so, and like many of you, I try to be a facilitator more so than someone like Jen said, who is standing in front of the class lecturing. That's not my style at all. And in fact, I'm very uncomfortable doing that. And so I often, like Jen, will present briefly, which then leads into some form of discussion or some form of interactive activity where students are getting into groups and answering questions, or they're working with partners. But one of the things that I really like doing in my in-person classes are showing videos and working as a class or working in groups to analyze and critique those and talk about what theories we see emerge or what we can critique within the films or the videos or whatever it is that I'm showing. So for instance, in a sports comm class, we might see something that's happening within the news related to Title IX. And so I'll pull up a news story that, from whatever news source, and we'll watch a 3 to 5 minute clip on it. And then I'll have a series of questions prepared and we can talk about them as a class, or we can break into groups. That's something we do quite commonly in my class. But other things that we do, for instance, in my research methods class is probably similar to some things that you would do in an English class, in which you're workshopping each other's work. Or for instance, for ours, my students have to write an annotated bibliography. And so I will make them either bring in their laptops or print out the 5 articles that they need for the first part of their annotated bibliography. And students always have a hard time creating a reference page and finding what journal they actually got this from or what the issue number is. And so we'll workshop it, and I'll be able to go around to each of the students and help them find, this is the issue number, or actually that's a conference paper and not an academic journal. And so those are a couple things that I do, but I think they're really focused on facilitating, me trying to facilitate conversation with my students. I love that Jen mentioned also student movement. I try to incorporate that a lot in my class, even if it's something like students are getting up and writing something on the board, or we'll do an activity where I'll give them options A, B, C, or D, and I'll label each corner of the room A, B, C, or D. And to answer it, they have to move their body to that corner to answer the question. So I think movement's really important in helping us learn as well. So those are a couple things that I do.
Thank you. I remember, I was just thinking about this. So this is a social psychology class for me back in undergraduate days. And social psych really isn't as much about movement, honestly, Lindsay, but they made it about movement. And that class, even though I'm not a social psychologist, that one stands out to me the most because they made us go out into large crowds. They made us do surveys. They made us interact in the world in various different ways in such an interesting way. And even though social psych isn't my favorite, it stands out to me many years later because of the fact that there was a kinesthetic component to a very heavy academic class. So I love hearing what you did in that particular respect. And I can only imagine they're going to remember your class because you got to do those things. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so we're going to move on to the second question. The second question kind of is just a follow-up from the first one. But what I'm going to ask the speakers to do is be very explicit about the specific types of tools, okay? And I'm going to point back at some interesting research. And if you go into the QR code that's shown on the screen here or on any of the upcoming slides, there is an article, there's a set of articles on there, but there's an article that has pink highlights. It's the very last article on there right now. And it really dives into, if we're going to be successful, we've got to interact. It doesn't matter what our format is. It could be face-to-face, it could be hybrid, it could be flipped, it could be blended, it could be anything. The key is interaction in whatever way that is. And the interesting thing about the position I get to sit in is I get to see hundreds and hundreds of tools, but what Lindsay uses may not be what's best for me in psychology. And it may never be what's best for somebody in biology or marine science. So I love hearing what works for you in your teaching style, in their learning preferences, and in your academic discipline. That to me, I think has been extremely helpful to understand how we can find specific tools to meet our academic and our pedagogy needs. All right, we're going to go kind of in counterclockwise. Lindsay, you just were on the hook though, so I'm going to go the other way and then put you at the end. So Jen, I'm going to start back with you if you don't mind. And again, we're looking at what do those interactions look like now, now that things have shifted, the world has shifted, and if there's specific tools that you have to share with us, what might those actually be?
Okay, so I'll start with the specific tools because I want to go back to movement at the end real quickly. Even though it doesn't involve a specific tool idea, it's this notion of Zoom, but I'm compelled by this thread now. But so I mentioned that when we started getting to the production phase of things in the classroom, we would move to Scalar to do this really interesting sort of creative process that was collaborative in building out chapters for a book. And the first thing I had to do was say, I can't do that in this digital, even though we're streaming, it was going to be too much. There was going to be too much kind of sort of preparation that had to go on. And this is a theory class. So we needed to do a lot with the text before we got to the point where we're doing this creative collaborative work. The first thing I did is I said, well, I'm going to have them do Medium articles. I'm going to have them actually produce in Medium. And this allows them to do the same sort of thing where they're producing these chapters and then I can collect them in various ways. But the problem with that was that they didn't get enough training in the collaboration and the movement that goes into producing that. So I had to come up with some steps and stages and some technologies before that would allow it. And so my first one that I really want to talk about is Hypothesis. So Hypothesis is a collaborative annotation tool. I love this tool. It has kinks like all digital tools do, but I find it to be really, really productive. And what it is basically is it's sort of, it's like if you were to take Google Docs and to turn it into something that really sort of was phased up in a really sort of interactive way. So you can take, PDFs, documents, you pop them into this environment, and then students could go in and collaboratively mark that text up on the spot together. Now, one of the interesting things I want to say about this is that in using it in the digital environment, especially while running Zoom and going back and forth between Moodle, I realized that there's a little bit of a lag. As students were sort of putting their comments in, there was a lag and we had to kind of wait, and I would have to refresh and wait. What that led to is that I stopped making it just an interactive in the moment tool where we're online, let's start to go. We did that. But then I left it there and I said, you can create an assignment in Hypothesis in Moodle, which is fabulous. You give credit for this. I'd say, come back to it in the next 3 days, go back in on your own terms and do some annotation. I saw an incredible bump from students that maybe aren't always sort of interactive in the moment after the fact. So there's like a 2-phase interaction, and then we'd have that document there for it to sort of, keep going. I won't go off and talk about VoiceThread right now, but VoiceThread is another tool that I used in this environment that I found to be tremendous. But most importantly, what I found about these tools is that they're not things that you just sort of set up and let run. You have to experiment with them in this space. If you're streaming, for example, see what's going to work in the immediate moment. Think temporally about the class as we're online, but what digital tools are still there after we're meeting that the students can go in on their own, where my face isn't up there on the screen, and they have their own space literally to interact with that document and each other in making comments. And I'll just say one other quick thing that's just kind of a tag on to this because it's brought up. one of the things that I've really been thinking a lot about over this last year is movement in, say, Zoom. We've had a lot of things come up around black boxes, not faces, and people being, what's presence in this environment, right? What does it mean when we're being present here and interacting in this environment? And so just one other thing I'll just drop in there, so I'm not talking too long here. I started to experiment with my own space. So I have a virtual background up before, but I would start to really break it up. So I'd move out. I went out into my backyard for class one time where I had the computer out there and I was in my backyard. And that sense of me moving in my space sort of encouraged people to move. So there's this kind of sort of, kind of co-opting this idea of moving in real space while you're Zooming, I found was really very successful. It's just kind of a Zoom tip, I guess you could call that one.
And I would just say, Jen, I mean, I'm fascinated with the idea of movement too. I'm not a big fan of learning styles. However, I am a huge fan of teaching styles, of the fact that we do all teach a little bit differently. And I do very much believe, just as somebody who has cognitive psych in her background, that engaging in different formats helps us to engage and interact. And that's what this whole session is about, is interaction. So movement of us as faculty, movement of our students, interacting with one another in various ways. I think there's something to be said about that physical activity, definitely. There's a whole research study I think that we can do on that whole piece of what does that physical activity piece have to do with it. Yeah. All right, Sarah.
Yeah, so so first, one of the things that I often try to do and have kind of purposefully tried to do since we've moved online for COVID is to not overload my students in tools. I think in part because in teaching DCD or digital culture and design, they're going to be they're working with new tools they've never seen before. And there's always this panic moment. I think in part because the students are in COFA where they're like, I'm not a scientist, I can't write code, like, oh no. Or like, I've never seen HTML before, professor, like, what am I gonna do? And it's like, no, it's okay, like, it's okay. And so I think there's, to kind of try to allay that panic, one of the things that I have purposefully tried to do is not overload additional tools to facilitate the learning so much as the tools that are part of the class, right? So like there's no getting around, for instance, using Twine is a tool that I use for interactive essay writing. We're definitely going to use that tool. They're going to have to learn that environment and that platform. And that's going to take an amount of like a mental load and an amount of fatigue and a learning curve. And so to try to balance that, I have tried to minimize what tools I bring in for like the class learning space as kind of slightly separate. So, so I guess like the tools that are, how am I moving from an in-person space where we would just talk right into Zoom? So with that in mind, though, one of the things I've done a lot to try and facilitate discussion moving from face-to-face into Zoom is very purposefully using the chat space in Zoom and using the emojis where, so for the chat, for instance, I'll often say, and like now it's almost kind of kicking back because no one unmutes in my class anymore. They just use the chat, which is fine, but it means I talk a lot and they hear me a lot. But I'll specifically ask, for instance, like over the next 3 minutes, write in the chat, like what are some ways that you use social media, just, to spark a discussion, and then we'll be able to bounce off of the chat. And what I have found that's really good about that is that in giving them that space to silently think and write without unmuting, where they're not worried about talking over someone or interrupting someone or in any of those, like navigating that social space, is that it gives them the time to think and to respond. And then when I can then say, okay, Sherry, so I see that you use Facebook to keep in touch with your family. Like, could you tell us a little bit more about that? And then the student has often been much more likely to unmute and then speak, often very eloquently and critically about that use or about whatever we're doing. So I've had to do some of those kinds of things that are not what I would do in the classroom. And it has meant that our discussions take longer, which is in some ways fine, but also when it's like you only have 50 minutes, that is just a thing that I've had to kind of balance, is like the time of this discussion, like the opening riff of how do you use social media in a classroom might be a 5-minute discussion has now become like 15 minutes on Zoom. So that's one thing. And then one of the ways that I use the emojis is both to check that they're, with me. So I'll say something like, if you're good on this concept of X, give me a thumbs up, and give them some time to give a thumbs up emoji. Again, my classes are pretty much completely off camera. So that both gives me a visual feedback that they're actually there, and also gives them a time to kind of to check in. And then if I don't see a thumbs up, that is when I'll say like, oh, Zinyi, I don't see a thumbs up. Everything okay for you? And either you've wandered away or you're just kind of thinking through, right? And that'll be fine. So I've tried to really lean into just using what's in Zoom rather than complicating things further by throwing more tools at them. Though I do find myself leaning increasingly on Google Docs, in part because there's like real-time collaboration in Google Docs, and I've started using those again to facilitate discussion. Like just today before this roundtable, I had a class where we are doing a markup exercise on recipes which we're going to translate into an XML markup, and we're coming up with a schema. So I'm trying to have them think about what kinds of functionality they would want in this imaginary digital cookbook. So like asking something like, hey, Alexa, is this recipe vegan? What kinds of things they would need to mark up, or how they would need to adjust their markup in order for Alexa to answer that question. So I sent them into breakout rooms with a Google Doc to actually write down what it was that they, in theory, discussed, in part because I know, because they've told me that they don't really discuss things in breakout rooms. So my students right now are freshmen who have been, college students of COVID entirely, and they've literally never met each other. So earlier this semester, I had asked them, after seeing some memes on like student meme pages and some TikToks and stuff about it, I was just like, do you all actually really hate breakout rooms? And they were like, well, yeah, it's weird because we don't know each other. Which was like, I mean, obviously, but it was still kind of news to me because last semester when I taught an upper div of students who all knew each other, right? They were like, breakout rooms was where they really came alive. So I've had to start, or not had to, but I've started really embracing prepped Google Docs with some kind of table or heading or prompted questions for them to respond to facilitate, again, shared thinking and shared discussion. And then also accommodate if they don't want to unmute or aren't in a place to unmute, or are uncomfortable to unmute or whatever else. And that's, I mean, there's other tools I'm using, but I feel like there may be another question about tools, so I'm not going to say any more on that right now.
Okay, perfect. Zinyi, I'm going to hand this to you so that you can share with us some of the items that you've been using, and then Lindsay, I'll hand it to you to let you finish up with this question.
Sure. So while like everyone else, I also use a few things in my classes, but I do want to emphasize that my classes are all taught using the flipped approach, which is very common for language classes. They're supposed to preview certain materials before coming to class, so they're prepared and they can benefit the most from in-class interactions. Well, how do interactions look like nowadays on Zoom for a foreign language class? So first, I just want to say I'm pleasantly surprised by how interactive my students are in the Zoom space. So I want to start with Zoom, which is a tool that we all use nowadays. So just a few tips to share. The breakout rooms are really great for language learning because you can put them in pairs. And I like Sarah, who had the issue with like freshmen not feeling comfortable talking to each other. The perk of learning a language is that they kind of stay on track. They have nothing else to talk about but the exercise. So they definitely, as long as you make you model the activity very well, which is key. Otherwise, when they're in breakout rooms, they don't know what to do. They are very lost. Besides, they lose contact. They lose access to the screen, right, to the slide once they're in breakout rooms. So you really have to make the modeling 100% clear. Step 1, step 2, step 4. And then, another thing that I found really helpful is to make it purposeful. So for example, if I teach, like let's say buying clothes, I would ask them to report to the main session one commonality you guys share and one difference. That means the activity that you're doing here is not mainly a drill to practice grammar, it's to exchange information, to ask them, to force them to pay attention to their classmates' everyday life. So I think that's great for them to bond with one another. And breakout rooms is also great to break cliques. As you guys know, in face-to-face setting, they usually just, talk to people around them. And it's really hard to break the cliques they form throughout the semester. And they usually stick to the same group when they do projects. But for breakout rooms, there are so many uncertainties. You don't know who you meet with. So I found it really brilliant for them to interact with more people in that space. And another thing I want to talk about is gallery view. So I assume a lot of instructors are frustrated about not being able to see students' faces, not being able to convince them that you need to have your cameras on, which I do experience. Even for my 300 level conversation class, I put it in my syllabus. I made it clear, hey, you guys need to show your faces and I need to see you speaking Chinese. Still, a few of them, they don't really turn their cameras on. But first of all, I think it's important for us instructors to be empathetic, right? We have to understand them, and you can't impose anything on them because it's already really challenging. This is so difficult, mentally, physically exhausting for everyone. So that's the most important thing. And second, I think it's equally important to show them why. Because usually they just think as an instructor, you want to see everyone so you feel good. But it's not just that. I learned this from a workshop I attended. A lot of students, they don't actually know they can see the entire class. So they only see people who talk. So they thought, oh, okay, so what's the point of just seeing one person talking, right? But if you can stop screen share every now and then to bring the whole class to a common space, then they realize that, okay, so this is interactive. I can see each other. And it's super cute when people start to, use their body language to interact. So I think, that's one thing. And another function I want to talk about is annotation. I'm not sure if that's something, other disciplines use a lot. On Zoom, you can annotate, and to help students process the grammar and vocabulary, they can all annotate at the same time. So I think that's also a great way to interact in the online space. I feel like I'm kind of running out of time, so I will just stop here. But I do also use VoiceThread and Echo 360. I can explain more later when we have questions about these tools.
Wonderful, thank you. Lindsay, your turn.
Sure. Okay. So I think in addition to a lot of the things that my colleagues said, I would add a couple things. First, I think one of the major challenges, obviously, in going from in-person to online, whether that's completely online or to Zoom, is obviously just not being physically present with people. And part of that is that we don't get to engage with our students' personalities, and they don't get to engage with ours. And so some of the things I've tried to do in my class is I try to lighten it up sometimes because I think it's easy to log in. Okay, we're here, let's go, let's talk about these things and move through these activities or whatever we're doing, and lose that sense of we're all humans interacting in this space. And so some of the things I've done, for instance, is I'll change my background to, I'm working on a paper where I look at Marvel's The Punisher show. So I study some Marvel things. So I'll put like a Black Panther background, right? And I'll ask my students like, what is this behind me? And then I'll have some people who really like Marvel, right? And they'll comment on it. Things like that, just to get them engage. And so now I have a couple students who are putting these really funny backgrounds. One's got like this big cat behind him all the time. And but I think those are really important to just kind of create this relationship with our students where we're humans, we're all in this space, and we can interact with each other on a human level. And on that same note, I also try to keep it simple. I don't draw upon a lot of technology outside of Zoom or Moodle or basic things like Echo 360. I use Echo 360 a lot to record videos and copy the link into my Moodle page. But I've found through student evaluations that they really do appreciate, specifically for classes that are completely online, they appreciate when I post announcements in the video format rather than in the Word format. And I would never know that that was a good thing to do. I actually started doing it because it was easier for me. And I think it kind of created this sense of interaction with me where, hey, I'm hearing from my professor. I'm not just reading a message that she's sending to me. And so I use Echo 360 a lot to record a video, and then either get the embed link or just copy the hyperlink and put it into an announcement or post it to that week's module. And along with that, I work really hard to keep my Moodle page because I have weekly modules for both my classes that meet synchronously and asynchronously. I try to keep it really, really simple. I don't want to bombard students with all these, go to this website and go to here, but I try to keep it a similar format every week where they have a video where I'm introducing the week. They have an assigned reading that usually links out to a book that I've gotten through the library through eText, which has been really great. And they have an activity, they might have a discussion, but I try to keep my Moodle page as user-friendly as possible. And this is mostly because I find myself lost in a lot of technology and online spaces. And I'm like, okay, how can we keep this as easy as possible for our students when they're trying to navigate all of these classes, all these Zoom links, all these kinds of things? How can I kind of keep this streamlined for them so they can move through the course in a way that doesn't cause more anxiety? And so those are some of the things that I do in addition to some of the things that my colleagues said they do.
I love that you're using the audio video as a form of communication. I also do that with mine, and I love to do that, not just like a welcome video, but just on occasion, a little 2-minute, hey guys, we're at midterm, we've made it, you're doing great. Look at the pretty sunshine outside. How are you doing? Just send me a video back. And like you, Lindsay, I really do think I've gotten some great feedback. And I have heard from my own students, I feel like I heard from my instructor more in a DL class than I do in a face-to-face class. I'm like, really? That's amazing. And I do think that those types of tips, like what you're saying and what everybody else is saying, adding those additional components of interactivity in is what's making them have that perception. It's giving them that idea. I think Jen was the one that said this earlier, the idea of instructor presence. They feel like we're there because they're hearing our voice and they're seeing our face. And Zenid was talking about that as well. Being able to hear each other and see each other speak is just so critical. And your ability to, record that as an announcement and post that and send that out. I just think that's an amazing thing to do. Do you send those weekly? Do you send them like on a weekly basis, or what does that look like? Is it just whenever you have a thought that you want to send out to them, or what does that look like?
I think in the summertime I did it weekly as kind of a reminder to go into the modules. But now I sent one out today, for instance, that there's some things happening in the news with the NCAA and Title IX, and it's related to class. And I added a few news links. Hey, let's watch this. Think about how the concepts relate to this. So I'll do it like as a reminder for things, but I'll also do it if there's just something happening in the world that's related to class and I just want to call their attention to it.
I just have one thing real quick to add, because Lindsay mentioned that she also used Moodle module books, which I also use in all my classes. I think it's easy for them to navigate Moodle when you use the book because they can clearly see everything listed in each week. But there is one thing that I wasn't aware of. So, like the assignments created with external tools like Echo 360 or VoiceThread, they don't actually pop up on the Moodle main page. If you use, it probably has nothing to do with the book. But I learned from my students that they would only do assignments on the main page instead of going to weekly modules. So sometimes they didn't do the external, tool assignments. So that's just, something that I realized this semester. I wasn't aware of it.
So what did you do, Zinni, if you don't mind me asking, in order to make sure that they saw those assignments? What were you doing to make sure that they didn't skip it?
Oh, so there are two things I do. Every day I send them an email. Hey, these are the assignments due. And second, I told them, go to weekly modules, click on that book on the course main page, and you'll see everything listed, everything due. That's the only two things I can do. But it's just, to me, it would be a lot better if those assignments could also pop up, on the what is it called, the main welcome page for Moodle with all the courses listed. Because I didn't know students would only do assignments with the announcements on, the main page.
Sarah?
Sorry, just on this particular topic, because I have found the same thing. So I actually switched this semester from doing a weekly module book to doing a tile that's called weekly schedules. And then in that tile is an individual page for each week. And so the page name will be like week 1, like January 8th to January 15th, or like whatever that week is. And then week 2, whatever. So it has the date and then also the week number. And so they show up in a list in order. And the reason I did that is, one, I had gotten feedback from students on the weekly modules book that when they open the book and it always defaults to chapter 1, it defaults to week 1 as what they see. And then they have to go down, and it's like that one more step, right, of scrolling down the chapter list to find the week. But nevertheless, it was like, it's a usability thing, right? And it's like, let's reduce one step if we can. So that's one of the reasons I shifted. And then because you're at that level within Moodle at the individual item level, if you turn on the tracking for like the assignment completion tracking, then you can set each of those pages to like, this page should be done by the end of this week, and then it will show up there. And so then whatever you put on the page, if you link in like whatever assignments you're doing or stuff within Moodle, it'll all show up there on that area. So that's one thing I did do to work around because of the book versus the page like object level in Moodle.
I love that you're using not only the new format, which is tiles, but that you've plugged in the completion tracking. And I do that, but I also use Lindsay's technique, and I record them a video to remind them that certain things are not automatically checked off. Meaning, if I have to manually grade your essay, you don't get a check mark automatically in the completion tracking. So I feel like I've kind of picked and chosen some of the techniques that you guys are talking about too in my own class, because I've had to record videos to tell them about the completion tracking. Jen, did I see you raise your hand?
Just quickly, because yes to all this. I love tiles. Dr. Leola introduced me to tiles, and I use tiles now. Like, you know, I eat M&Ms. I don't eat a lot of M&Ms, but I use tiles probably more than M&Ms. Love tiles. Yes to the videos. And just as everything everybody's been saying about VoiceThread, just an add-on to that, I find that students don't know that they can set up, they have access to their own account in VoiceThread. One way to start getting them involved is say, go in there and create something on your own. Then they feel like they have an ownership of that space and they kind of know where it is, right? And it pops up for them in that way. So I kind of, before I give them a VoiceThread, I ask them to go in and create a VoiceThread and explore that environment. That really helps, I find, as well.
Wonderful tip. Thank you. And that is actually one of the things, particularly for somebody either watching live today or watching this at a later time. I did put this into the YouTube chat in response to a question or comment that was in there. Some of these tools that the speakers are talking about are tools that are new. So like VoiceThread is new, Edpuzzle is new. Some of those things were ones that our faculty came to us and said, I really need this in order to be able to do, and it is always interaction. That's what I love, is you guys as faculty are specifically looking for ways to interact with students. So we were able to test out these types of tools, vet them, and then roll them out in a small section. So I say that because some of the cool things about many of these tools is it's not, Sherry as the instructor is presenting, it's not a push. It's what Jen is describing. It's interactivity. It's also a point where even students can build the content themselves, which is amazing. So a lot of the new tools are the very, very high end of what used to be called Web 2.0. So very high-end interactivity tools that allow students to build and create as well. So our next question, and you should be able to see this on the screen, you've answered, a lot of you guys have already talked about your tools. So what I really want to ask you is the last part of this particular question, which is what kind of feedback are you getting from your students? I'm going to give you an example of mine. So in my own class, I use the feedback forum, and I asked them this interesting question of how many of you prefer to text your instructor instead of emailing or telephone? And then they all vote that they want to text me instead of email or call. And then I asked them how many of you have a webcam? All of them say that they do, which is amazing. And then I also asked them, like, hey, do you want to meet for virtual chat or do you not? And based on what they tell me, then I kind of adapt my course and I do some small changes. Like I text them, I change it so that they don't have to submit a research report. Instead, they're going to submit a video because they like that. but I did that because I wanted to make sure that they were happy. What do you have access to? What resources do you have? What are you comfortable with? So that's the good part of my feedback. I also have bad feedback, but I'm going to hold that for now. So what have you gotten? What kinds of feedback have you gotten? All these great tools. I know all of you very well. And so I know you've all put a ton of effort into not just building your course, but supporting your students and building tutorials. What are they telling you? What do they like? What do they not like? What are they confused about? Do you get any feedback that they're like, I really wish this other campus that I used to go to, they had this. I wish we had that. Anything like that that you can share. And I'm just going to open the floor up so you guys can unmute. And if you unmute, I'll call on you and we'll go from there.
Sorry, everyone. I probably have to go first because I have to leave in 5 minutes, and I'll keep it short. Echo 360 is something I have been using since I created my hybrid blended Chinese introductory level class. So nothing has really changed about Echo except that I have embedded their preparation checks in the tool just to give them, one less thing, one less thing to do for the online class, the synchronous session. And I have received really, great comments on, Echo 360 as a tool to help them preview important vocab and grammar of each lesson. So, but what I want to talk about more is the VoiceThread tool. So I adopted VoiceThread after we, switched to online learning because of COVID, and it's been amazing in all my language classes. So for all the students to interact in synchronous meetings, usually it's quite impossible. And there are very active learners, and also there are those who are not comfortable speaking, in the online environment. So VoiceThread gives them a means to still, get feedback, individualized, and I would say not just individualized, but very detailed feedback on their pronunciation and speaking Chinese. So I think, this is definitely a great tool for foreign language learning. And it does take me a long time to go over all their submissions and provide individual feedback on each one of them. But I do think the work is, a while worth. It's worthwhile because students they feel like they can still interact with the instructor despite the online environment. So VoiceThread is definitely helping a lot in all my language classes. And that's my comments.
Thank you for sharing that, Zenyi. And I know you have to run as well. I'm so glad you're able to be with us for the first hour as well. And I just want to point out, particularly for anybody either watching live or joining later, VoiceThread is a tool we have been advocating for a few years. And so with COVID, we saw a tremendous increase in not only the need, but the requests for that. And I am thrilled. I'm overjoyed and watching all the ways that everybody is using, not just in language learning, but we have so many people throughout the campus that actually have begun using it too. So definitely thank you for sharing that experience and also that feedback that you're getting from the students. I have heard that too from my colleagues at other campuses, how much they love this tool, and their students love it too. So that's just amazing. Thank you, Zenyi. Holly, thank you for joining us. For everybody that's watching, Holly Takersley is now with us as well. And we have just opened the floor for anybody who wants to unmute to specifically address question here. And we're talking specifically about what types of feedback have you received from your specific students with these new tools, new interactive pedagogies that you have applied. And Jen, I see that you have unmuted, so I'm going to pass it to you.
Yeah, I'll just, because it builds off of what Zenyi was just saying. I too really just, I love VoiceThread. Interestingly, and this feeds into the feedback aspect of it, I went to VoiceThread and I was so psyched about it. I'm like, this is great. This is like, and I was just, really jazzed about working with it. And initially, I made a VoiceThread and my students were like, I'm not sure what to do with this. It's like, I know you gave instructions, but it's like, it seems like it's sort of a cross between a presentation tool and a video tool and these kinds of things. And one of the things that I did discover, and I guess this brings me to the importance of play and emphasizing play, is I now start with letting them go in there. I give them some basic instructions. They get to get in there and create a kind of introductory voice thread that later on people are going to sort of comment on in the class, their colleagues, and it allows them to really feel ownership over it. Totally different perception of the tool now. Students have a totally different, I get feedback of a totally different type now. And then just one other quick thing along the lines of what Lindsay was talking about. I have started doing video check-ins on a weekly basis. And I think one of, and I'm focusing on the positive feedback like you, Sherry. I get some bad ones in there too, but we like focusing on the good stuff. I get messages now from students that say to me, it starts with, Dr. Boyle, thank you for your video message, or thank you for your video. Nobody ever says to me, thank you for your email, right? It's just not something. So the video alone is another level of presence that the students seem to really respond to.
So yeah, I will echo everyone as a voice thread enthusiast. I've used it just as some other uses. I used it in, well, first last October when we were doing the women's suffrage transcription jam, I actually circulated the instructions to the campus for how to actually work in the Library of Congress's By the People transcription platform through VoiceThread. With like using the slides for images to guide through, and then like a quick kind of audio voiceover for like how to put it together. And a couple students actually messaged me on Twitter to tell me how great that was, which is like kind of random, both as platforms of communication, because they weren't my students. And so I was like, I don't know who you are, but awesome. So that was kind of good to hear. And then I've also used it in my classes for student collaboration. So one of the classes that I am teaching now is our capstone, where students will build a digital portfolio of the work that they've completed over the course of their time in the major. And an early assignment that we have is to investigate different platforms they can use for hosting and building their portfolio. So like WordPress versus Squarespace versus Wix versus Weebly and whatever. And rather than, give them a lecture of like, here's what each of these accomplishes, or making them research each one individually, I actually set up a voice thread, and on the slide was like the visual of the slide was the tool, like the logo of whatever platform they were using, and then assigned each student one to research. And then they had to add their research findings to the voice thread, whether as a text comment, a video comment, or an audio comment. And so now we kind of have this nice shared artifact that's, in this class, it's 8 students, so 8 slides long, 8 different platforms, each of which discusses like cost, hosting, what kinds of custom coding you can do versus how much of it is drag and drop, WYSIWYG stuff, and things like that. So I've also used it to host collaboration in that way. But besides VoiceThread, I do want to just again plug Google Docs as just like this kind of overlooked tool that is it's a weird tool, because it's one that seems overlooked because it's just not fancy in the way that some of these, and it's not new, right? It's been around for quite a while. But what I have found is, and that's shocking to me, even though I know better, is that many times my students have never used it as a like real-time collaborative document until they come into my class. And so when I distribute a link to them, and then in the real class, in a live classroom, it would be up on a screen in the classroom. On Zoom, it's of course the shared screen, and they actually see like, oh, I'm anonymous capybara, and look, I'm literally writing in real time or whatever. It just like, it's amazing. It's like this total light bulb, like mind-blowing moment that goes on. And so I've used that a lot for things, especially one thing that I haven't found a good tool for is a similar live shared collaborative writing space for plain text. Or for code. So something like Sublime or a text editor for writing HTML, or for writing shared CSS or something like that. I haven't found a good one that they can work on together like Google Docs. So what I have started doing is having them do a Google Doc, and then we talk about exporting to plain text, and then reopening that in like on a local drive in something else to turn it to the format that they want. So it ends up facilitating like a nice discussion about file formats and what computers, read what different files and so on, that I don't know that we would otherwise have in quite as explicit of a way.
Sarah, I don't know that this is an on-the-spot troubleshooting thing, but to follow up on your comment about plain tools actually doing amazing things. So there's actually a built-in Moodle chat that nobody uses at all because it's just text, but it's real time. So I don't know, it might be something to play with if you haven't tested it.
Like it's a back and forth, like a text messaging app,
Yeah, and it's fairly lightweight, but I'm wondering, I'm imagining Notepad or WordPad or something like that. It's definitely worth testing because it is definitely very low end of the totem pole, basic. There's no formatting. It's like a WordPad or even Notepad. So awesome. it might work. I don't know, but that's something for us to check out.
I will check that out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much stuff in Moodle that it's like impossible to know all of the tools. It's like I find like my 3 and I'm like, these are my 3 that I just will hold on to tight.
Most people don't even know that there's games built in, like Snakes and Ladders is built in. There's all kinds of fun things. If you start playing into all the different tools, then there's a lot of different options in there too. All right, so Lindsay, I see you have unmuted. Can you share with us some of the outcomes so far from students that you're finding?
Yes. I haven't used VoiceThread yet. I feel like I'm the only one. And so I'm definitely going to go check that out after this panel is over. But I did want to say in terms of feedback from students, we're talking about all these kind of new and innovative ways of doing things, which are really great. But I will say that we still can do some of the traditional things in online spaces. And I've gotten really good feedback from students on some of those. And so, for instance, group projects. I'm not a fan of grading. I don't think anyone is a fan of grading a lot. And so one of the benefits of group projects, I think, obviously for faculty, is that instead of grading 30 assignments, right, we might be grading 8 assignments because Moodle has a function where you can actually put students into groups and one group member submits the paper for all of them. And then when you grade it, the grade goes to all of them, if that's the way you want to do it. But I found that has been really great for my students because they will meet over Zoom in their own time to either do, whether it's a major project or not, but I've also done this for assignments where, for instance, I'll have a documentary for them to watch and then a series of questions, and they're required to meet as a group to answer the questions together and then submit them as a group. And that's something I would typically do in class, in the classroom space, but we can't. And so now I do that on Zoom and I let them, or I do that online, but they do it in their own time. And students really do appreciate the opportunity to still meet people that are in their class and work outside of class time as they typically would, because I think we all know that part of the college experience is engaging with your classmates and learning from people who are from different geographic locations and races and ethnicities and all these kinds of things, right? And so kind of facilitating that interaction outside of class can still be done in these online classes, or when we're completely on Zoom, they're just meeting through Zoom, or I don't actually tell them to meet through Zoom, but a lot of them do end up doing that because it's easiest for them. So that's kind of my thought, and I've gotten good feedback on that from students where they still like doing those kinds of things in class that we would do if we were in an in-person class anyway.
Thank you for sharing that specifically about the community building, Lindsay. That's some of the articles that we have in this resource document that you can scan the QR code for are about community building, which is what Lindsay is specifically talking about. It's not just the instructor to student, but it's a lot of, I'd like to know my classmates, or one of you guys that was a speaker mentioned earlier, Sarah, it may have been you, yours were freshmen. When COVID started, they have yet to meet each other face to face. And so giving them a space, and that's just mind-blowing to me. It's been a year and they have not yet met their classmates. And so being able to find a community of learning space where they can get to know each other, not necessarily while they're communicating about an assignment, but maybe, I think that's an important piece of this conversation that we as a campus have got to look at and figure out. How are we making a digital learning community in addition to building it into the microcosms of our classes? So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a whole other conversation too. Holly, did you have items that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a second about the texting app. because I really changed the way that I was using Remind. I started using it last spring when we went to emergency remote learning. And I used it then very much the way the title suggests you should, to remind students of upcoming deadlines or that sort of thing. This semester, I really started using Remind as, in some ways, kind of a motivational tool. So the messages I send out through Remind now are less about due dates and more about checking in. You guys have got this. I know it's a hard semester, you know, that kind of chat that you might text a friend. And that has made a world of difference. I don't think I ever had a student comment on my Remind texts that were about due dates. But now I have students that will reply to me or that will check in at the beginning of class and say, oh, I got your text. I'm okay. I'm surviving, but not thriving, right? And having those kind of conversations. And interestingly enough, just in the last 2 weeks or so, I've had students who normally have their cameras off during class, but at the beginning of class, and you all know those kind of precious few minutes before a class starts where people will talk to one another, students will kind of chat informally and sometimes chat with the faculty member. They've started turning their cameras on at the very beginning of class. Now they turn them off again for class, but they'll turn their cameras on at the very beginning to say hello to each other and hello to me. And I think a lot of it has to do with that Remind texting, using it in a little more informal way than I would have used it before. So that has made a real difference, I think, for me and for my students.
Holly, I did something with Remind. So this predates COVID. It was a Saturday, and most of my due dates are Sunday evenings. And I was out for a walk with my dog on the beach, and I took a photo and I sent it to everybody. I'm like, hey guys, reminder, your assignments are due. Here's Sophie, my dog. How are you? And so I think I did something like you did. And it was just a casual look. I'm a real human. I got more responses to that text than I have ever gotten. Ever. They loved my dog. They really communicated. And I think you've hit on something here that's important. It's that instructor presence. It's that we're humans too. It's, helping them to understand we're living this just like you're living this. And so the interactivity of like, she exists outside of the campus and she's checking on me outside of our classroom. I think that is just critical to us pushing this interaction forward. So I'd love to hear you've shifted how you're even using a tool you're already using in a way that they are responding to in a positive way. I think mine text me more than they email me. Definitely. We hit a tipping point during COVID where all of a sudden I am flooded with texts and I actually get less emails than texts now from them. So I have seen a change too in the way that they behave. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we are at a time where we've got about 18 minutes left. I've been monitoring chat on YouTube. We're coming to the close of the different questions that we have prepared. Before we start this last question, though, just a reminder for everybody either viewing synchronously or viewing later, you've got a QR code on your screen, so you can either use your QR reader or your phone if you have an iPhone and just scan that. I'll also make sure that the link to that is in our YouTube chat afterwards, so you can go back and navigate. But this is almost an open floor kind of conversation. As I started this conversation and introduced our speakers earlier, I was kind of giving you guys some background. Some of them have served on DL committees, some of them have been faculty course mentors. They've all been teaching distance learning for a really long time in various capacities. So these are kind of a community of experts in some way, in various ways. And so because of that, this question, again, I think I'll just go around in clockwise order this time and just see for the speakers that we've got here, if you had a piece of advice to offer to your colleagues, what would that be? What is the magic, if there is a magic tip? What's the thing that really you feel like helps your students to connect, to help you feel connected? What is that helps you in your specific discipline? Or even if it's something like Holly was explaining earlier, something where it's changed. It used to be this and now it's that. Can you share that with us? And Sarah, I'm going to start with you because you're first on my screen.
I'm laughing at going first on this one because I've actually having a challenging semester facilitating interaction right this exact minute. So it doesn't feel like I should be doling out any advice, but I think like the big things for me are, I think the first one is using tools that, or one, like not fetishizing tools too much, right? Like tools do a lot for us, but I think we sometimes have a tendency, and I say this from some of the communications and questions I got when I stepped into the faculty course mentor role, of things that were like, oh my gosh, I've heard of this like cool new tool VoiceThread and I'm not using it. Like, what do I, and it's like, if it's working for you without it, you don't need to use it, right? Like and I think sometimes there's a tendency or like to want to like, and I do this myself, where I want to like custom code the crap out of my Moodle and just make it, you know, like add different colors and boxes and shapes and stuff and just make it beautiful at all times. And it's like, doesn't necessarily need to be done, right? Like there's a point at which it simply becomes like window dressing in Flash, and not necessarily supportive of student learning. Because I think the thing to remember is that tools, as they overwhelm us, also overwhelm our students. So I guess the main piece of advice would be to use tools as they serve you, right? And to remember that they serve us, we don't serve the tools, which is, you know, and I say this also because that's a thing in my discipline that happens a lot, is that in digital humanities, there's such a focus on skills and tools and building that it becomes this kind of weird, like, am I hireable because I don't know these 10 like pieces of software and programming languages, as opposed to like, am I hireable because I like have all these other areas of expertise just in like one area of academic anxiety. And then the other thing I would say is there's been a lot of talk today about videos and using videos to speak with students. And I think that and the Remind texting app, and I think that those things can be really helpful. This semester actually had a student do her intro video through her TikTok. And so I responded to her on TikTok. And I have no idea if that was cool or not. But she emails me a lot, like more than any other student, and I've never met her. So I have to think that on some level that did help. But I don't tend to do a lot of videos, in part because I don't love watching myself be recorded. I don't like editing myself. I've not come to a comfort level with that yet. And I don't think that I'm lacking, my students are lacking in that. So if that's where you are, if you're like, oh my God, video work is so much more work, again, that's still just one more tool. And if that doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve you. So I think that's what I would leave us with.
Sarah, you were in our conversation with the DL committee recently where we were talking about that phrase, technology transparency. And the concept that you just described is technology transparency. It's the importance of teaching first and putting that tech back here. And I truly appreciate it because I'm like you, I want to try all the tools. But in truth, you got to focus on your pedagogy. You got to focus on your teaching. So I think you have to find what you're comfortable with, what your students are going to be able to do without it being too heavy of a lift to learn a brand new tool. And Lindsay said earlier, you know, this is kind of an old school tool. You were talking about a couple of different things, Lindsay, but it works, and it is what they interact with, and it's what they're already familiar with, and they didn't have to learn anything new. That's me with discussion boards. Because they're amazing, and if you do them correctly, then they can still be extremely functional. So I love that you brought that to the forefront, Sarah. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I mean, and just to like quickly follow up on like another kind of example of this, one thing that I think we all want and that we all recognize is for students to be able to interact with each other independent of us and get to build community without us, because that is so lacking right now, right? And I think all of us, whether through trauma-informed pedagogy or care-based pedagogy, I think we all recognize that need. But like earlier this semester, a colleague had posted online about whether or not they should open up a Discord as a space for students to chat. In a Discord, it's kind of like Teams or Slack, like it's just kind of a messaging space where you can create your own, it's called a server, but it's not like a server, it's just what they call it. But it's like the community space where you discuss and you can chat in real time like you can on a Teams chat and about different topics. But specifically the idea being that it's not part of the school's suite of tools, it's specifically and like explicitly not part of the class, and they could hang out there. And that like in theory, or supposedly like all of Gen Z is on Discord already, right? Like nice big scare quotes around that, because of course that's not the case. But anyway, it was like this long conversation that possibly could have been supported, but I think then in checking with his students, none of them used it already. So then that just in trying to create this community, we throw another tool at them that in this particular case, the colleague wasn't really prepared to do it either. So it was like this huge learning curve for them to set up. So just, you know, even with all our best intentions, right, we need to keep this, I think, in mind that like the tools fatigue is real.
Thank you. All right, who else wants to take this one? A final piece of advice, Jennifer, or Jen, you're on the next on my screen. Would you like to take this one? What big one thing, if you had to narrow it down to one thing, what would that be?
Sure. So I'm going to quickly do two things. All right, that's right. So one is to just reinforce what Sarah just said. Simpler is often just better, right? Not just because it allows you to feel less anxious about using tools, but students are less anxious in access. So I think, you know, Sarah has, while we were talking about hypothesis and VoiceThread, Sarah was pointing out that Google Docs is an amazing tool that is simpler, but just works better for some students. And so I would definitely say that. And I would say, you know, for example, this has been my sort of example throughout last year, I find Teams really difficult because it tries to do so many things. So it's not just technological overload, it's emotional overload. It's an overload on your system. So if you have students who don't have a great internet connection, it's an additional problem there. So in thinking about sort of burdens, we have a lot more to consider in the COVID era. And I think that sometimes just keeping it really simple is really important. And then the really last quick thing I'll say, and Holly, I think, was just pointing to this in another register around the Remind app, is that I have come to embrace play, serious play, in a way that I have never in the past, because I just think it's so important. So if you want to use VoiceThread, don't get in there seriously and set up the assignment and get anxious about it. Go in and play with it with your students and try it out. And if it doesn't work, you can all collectively say, well, that didn't go well. And now we're going to go back to like, but that play carries over into a lot of different things, right? It's not just about sort of trying out tools. It's about, again, that notion of presence. So you were talking about your dog, Sherry. I have, and I learned this in my cool training, I have an introduction to who I am. I have my background and then I have a picture of my 3 dogs. And, you know, students will look at that because I ask them to kind of go through and know who I am. And they're like, oh my God, you have 3 dogs? And it's like, yeah, you know, and we get to like, you know, sort of get into that discussion. All those things qualify as play for me. And I think that it really sort of brings just this really needed sense of not only community, but of purpose through just experimenting without risk of real failure.
Thank you. All right, Holly, you're next on my screen.
Sorry, my office phone was ringing, so I had to hit silent before I could unmute. Yeah, you know, I would just mention, and this may have come up in your earlier discussion, and I'm sorry I was late. I was teaching, but, you know, I have learned not to be afraid to grade interaction in a way that I never would have graded it in the classroom. So I'll give you an example. I'm teaching social policy, which I jokingly tell my students is the course of depression, because we talk about a lot of difficult things. We talk about poverty and homelessness and mental health care and substance abuse and, you know, education failures and all this kind of stuff that we have to deal with as policymakers. And in the classroom, I would always, you know, dealing with those things is difficult for students. And in the classroom, it's easier to kind of figure out where they are, get the kind of nonverbal cues you need to kind of figure out how are they feeling about this, and also to have them share some experiences. I just turned that into an assignment so that when we talked about income inequalities, for example, I built a reflective assignment where I asked them to look up statistics on the places that they're from and to then reflect on their own experiences growing up in those places and how they see those statistics reflected in their experiences. I never would have graded that before. That would have been a conversation we had in the classroom. But by doing that, they got to kind of apply theory to practice. And I asked them after I graded those, who would be comfortable sharing in a discussion board And many of them said I would, and that also allowed them to connect, because some of them said, I grew up in a place just like that. And they had their own little side conversation about that. Again, in the classroom, that would have just been part of conversation, but now it's a graded assignment. And I have a couple of others like that on different issues that we're studying. And so I kind of learned to get over my snootiness about what an assignment is and to be able to grade those kind of interactions, which I think has helped the students engage in that material a little bit better.
Holly, how do they submit that currently? Like you said that they could submit it and share it. So how do they submit it initially? And then if they submit it to the group, what does that look like? Just so people know what that looks like in Moodle or elsewhere.
So initially I set it up just as an assignment in Moodle with a few questions, and then they have a free response in the text box. And then after it's graded, I ask them if they would like to share their answer. And in those cases, I actually will take their answers and paste them into the discussion board on their behalf. So, that's how I've set it up. There are probably better ways to do that, but I just use that kind of simple function.
Okay, perfect. Lindsay, what one tip or two, if you're Jen, would you like to share with the group?
Yeah, and so one thing I was actually thinking about in terms of fostering student engagement is this kind of absence of engagement that students have with not only the professor of the class and the people in the class, but also just with the campus community or their department community as a whole. And so, for instance, I'm in Britton Hall, and we usually have all kinds of students hanging out in the lobby, and you can see faculty as they go by, and you can talk and check in and say hi, and we don't really have that right now. So I can give an example of how I tried to foster that in my class. Actually, today we did it. In my communication research methods class, I organized kind of a roundtable discussion like this with 5 other faculty in my department, including the department chair, and I invited them to come to my class and talk with students about our capstone or thesis projects, because it relates to the class I'm teaching, and then talk to them about grad school and our master's program. And this created an opportunity for students. We worked together as a class to develop questions that the students would ask the panel, but I also just gave them the opportunity to go, hey, that's our department chair, or that's a professor I have in my other class, or I've never met that professor before, but maybe I'll have them for communication theory next semester. And it gave them an opportunity to actually see the other faculty in our department, hear what classes they teach, hear what kind of research they do, and hear some advice from them about moving forward in the program. And so that was just a simple thing. And, we're still using Zoom, still inviting people into the Zoom space, but students got to learn from someone who wasn't me, right? My face isn't on Zoom all the time then. And they got to kind of create a sense of community with the department as well. And so I would encourage people to think about inviting other people to your class. I know many of you probably do that too, but I've invited colleagues from other universities to pop in on Zoom, which has been great. Or a colleague in my department to, can you come in and teach about statistical research methods? Because that's not my area. Will you teach this one day? And they will. And students really like that. They like the change, right? Because they see me every day on Zoom. And they like that engagement with other people, and it kind of changes things up for them.
I love, again, what we said earlier and what you're saying again here. You're building community both in and outside. So you're helping us to build retention. Thank you, Lindsay, because you're encouraging them to connect to everybody else and continue on and stay with Coastal. That's amazing. Like that's the whole point of today, is to talk about interaction, but not just interaction even within our own spaces. But I have every one of you talk about interaction and how, like Holly talked about this example of me looking at my hometown and then thinking about how that impacted me and my space growing up and all these other things. That's a much bigger, broader cultural form of interaction. So I loved hearing all of those things. All right, so we are at close. We are in the last 2 minutes of today. I'm going to go ahead and page forward to the last slide that we've got here as well today. And then I want to thank all of our speakers. Everybody, thank you so much for being with us, for sharing your expertise. If you're watching this live, if you're watching it later, this will be archived. It will be available under the cool digital learning guide under best practices. Again, if you've not not yet scanned it, you can scan this QR code and that will open up a OneDrive open document. We've been talking about collaborative documents. Sarah highlighted Google Docs. This is a OneDrive collaborative document that our speakers and my team have been building for you. So you can access that. And then just a promo there, we've got additional events coming up, including our next round of Cool Grants, which are going to be rolling out soon enough. Fingers crossed, everything will come out to you very soon. So keep your eyes peeled for those, and also for the announcements for the April Roundtable, and for additional trainings. Thank you guys again to our speakers. Thank you for everybody for watching live and for watching later. And everybody take care. Bye-bye.